Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. I'm your host, Mal McCallion, co-founder and CEO of ModelProp.ai, and I am here with your weekly digest of all the important news from the paired worlds of property and AI. In this week's property news, we'll be diving deep into Rightmove's potential pricing probe, Yopa's careers plan, and on-the-market owner CoStar's bid for the Australian portal market's #2 domain. We'll also have the usual quickfire AI stories featuring Musk versus OpenAI in finance, Musk versus OpenAI in court, and Musk versus OpenAI in kind of general technology stuff too. And there'll be a couple of other things that don't feature Elon Musk, including voices from beyond the grave. As ever, we've got a great tool of the week to help you be more productive, and our occasional series Weird AI of the Week is back with very serious people talking about children's game Minecraft very seriously indeed. Okay, so you ready? Let's get paired up. All right, in our property news, wanted to start with the conversation that is going throughout the property industry here in the UK, all about Rightmove and its latest round of price increases. Now, over the next 3 to 4 years, up until 2028, Rightmove has been very clear that 60% of its ever-increasing revenues is going to come directly from estate agents and hiking fees. Now, enterprising agent Sean Adams of Cooper Adams has set up a petition that at the time of recording this, which is Monday, the 24th of Feb, had over 1,300 signatures, basically appealing against the ever-increasing Rightmove price increase train, and trying to get agents to band together to complain to the CMA, which is the Competition and Markets Authority, to stop them from being able to use what is on many metrics a monopolistic position for it to just continue to hike its prices for in perpetuity, it seems. Regular listeners, viewers will know that I have never been that enamored, I think, of Rightmove and its pricing policies. I believe fundamentally that it is dragging money out of the industry that could be better spent on innovation and on other things that are going to help estate agents do even better jobs for their clients. And I think that's the really important thing, right? Is, actually, how do estate and lettings agents bring their skill sets, their personalities, their ability to do the negotiation on behalf of vendors and landlords, bringing people to their dream homes and enabling them to live better lives. That is what, in my experience of 25 years in the industry, the majority of estate and lettings agents are here to do. And I consider that the aggressive pricing of Rightmove is hobbling them in being able to do that, and I think this is particularly evidenced by the fact that they don't do anything with the additional money that they raise, right? Rightmove has got a 73% margin, something like that, and all they use the majority of that money for is to buy back shares and to try and increase the share price for their shareholders, not for consumers or for agent clients. So this is a really interesting development. I think it's largely overdue in terms of that there have been various campaigns over time. I remember the boycott Rightmove campaign from around the pandemic time, and this is interesting because of the angle of attack is actually at perhaps one of Rightmove's weakest flanks, which is that actually, is it a monopolistic entity, and therefore is it able to charge fees that are unfair as a result of its position? I remember back in, when we first set up Prime Location back in 2000, there was a lot of or certainly subsequent to that, sort of over the next 5 years or so, there was a lot of focus on whether Rightmove was building a monopolistic position. And the argument from them back then, back in 2005 or so, was that essentially agent marketing is spent on multiple other things, including print and so on. And therefore, whatever share Rightmove had of it, it was still a minority, or certainly not monopolistic, compared to agents' overall marketing spend. Now, I think it's a really interesting time to go back and revisit that argument. Is Rightmove's 2000 or whatever it is right now, I think it's 1600, something like that, per average revenue per agent. So on a monthly basis, the average branch is paying £1,600, something like that. And Johan Svanstrom has made it very clear in a Investor Day presentation in November 2023 that within 5 years of that time, so by November 2028, he intends to get that up and over 2,000 per branch per month. So even on those terms, it's a 25% plus increase. And back in 2023, it was about 1,400 or so. So it's huge additional money. It's coming in directly from estate and lettings agents. It does not have any acknowledgement of economic conditions or anything like that. It is just in my view, ruthless cash grab that it again isn't because they want to do something particularly with it, is because they can. So I think that this is going to be an interesting play. There were some articles in various publications over the last few days saying that Citigroup, for example, has slapped a sell notification on Rightmove shares, worried that actually if a probe does come to pass that it may be difficult for them to fight it off. I think, and there are some other City analysts who are of similar mind. I thought it was really interesting. I was on a podcast with Simon Baker, the guy who essentially set up and built realestate.com.au, which is the Rightmove of Australia. And we will talk a bit more about Australia in a sec. I was on his podcast a week ago, and he said essentially that he thinks that Rightmove should have sold out to REA, realestate.com.au, in September last year when REA made a bid for them, and I was absolutely in agreement. I think that kind of share price pop that happened as a result of that bid, I think. I just can't see how their share price is going to continue to stay where it is when the realization comes of just what AI is capable of. And again, if you listen to that podcast, it's the Online Marketplaces podcast with Simon Baker. It's it's a great podcast anyway, but it was really great fun to do. I spoke a lot about agentic AI, and again, regular followers and those that are watching me on LinkedIn and who listen to this regularly, and also get the newsletter that we send out that you can subscribe to on modelprop.ai, will know that I think agentic AI is going to be the portal, the portal killer, essentially, the thing that is going to change how we view portals in the same way as online and portals themselves changed how we view print back in the early 2000s. Agentic AI essentially allows you to ask for deep research, and there's an OpenAI version, there is a Google version, there is a Perplexity version, there is coming soon an Anthropic Claude version. All of these technology businesses are competing to get consumer attention for their particular models. And I think that this means that when you put in a query, and this is what I have done on numerous occasions, put in a query about a particular search, for example, 3-bedroom property with a sea view near a train station and a parking space with this particular value in this particular location, then it will go away and it will scour the entire internet to find the results that you want. And it will take a few minutes, but it will find results not just from the portals, but also from individual estate agents. And that means that the reliance on the aggregation function of property portals, which has been their real kind of killer app over the last 25 years, has been their unique ability, and particularly the largest in any market, so Rightmove in the UK, their ability to get 95% of properties on the market onto their website and enable people to search for them. That function is gone. Essentially aggregation is over, because these deep research models, these agentic AI, as it's known, models from the big AI companies, will now be able to go, and are already able to go and find the properties that are not just within the Rightmove kind of filters of it needs to be this many bedrooms, this price range, and this location. It can also then include things like I want a sea view, or I wanted to have a skylight in the kitchen, or space for a swimming pool in the garden, whatever you like, and it will go away and it will find these things without you needing to go and sit on Rightmove. It will actually kind of surf Rightmove and also on the market and also Zoopla and also every agent website in that particular location, provided asterisk caveat, provided that the agent has made their website easily readable by these AI models. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of kind of coming together of different pressures on Rightmove, and this way of agentic AI being able to search also boosts the likes of On the Market, the likes of Zoopla, because it also will go through their property portfolios too. So, for example, if you don't like the amount that Rightmove is going to try and charge you this particular year, then come off Rightmove and go on to and just stay on Zoopla, because in due course you will find that AI is going to find those properties. And again, as long as your own website is suitably available and discoverable, then it will come and find the properties on your website anyway. So and also there are free services out there, services like Jitty, etc. So that there's a lot of coming together that always happens. I say always, that has happened once before in the platform change that was the internet coming along. Enabled agents to free themselves from the vice-like grip of their local news publishers and magazines, and aggregate everything online. Now, what we're going to find is that agents are able to free themselves from the vice-like grip of Rightmove, because agentic AI is going to find these properties anyway. So, yeah, look, massive applause to Sean Cooper Sean Adams from Cooper Adams for launching this petition. I think it's available if you go on to his Facebook group, which is called Rightmove Fee Fight, or one word, Rightmove Fee Fight. So go and have a look at that, and yeah, do sign it up, because I think that anything that is going to help deter Rightmove from its constant and again ruthless increase in prices has got to be a good thing for the industry, and a good thing for consumers as well as for agents themselves. So yeah, lots going on there, and it's going to be one to keep an eye on for sure. Right, next up on our property news stories, we're going to talk about Yopa. Now, those again that are regular listeners to our podcast and regular readers of the newsletter will know that Purple Bricks as an entity is not my favorite, and there are very specific reasons for that. That is because of their willingness to essentially not tell the truth about the service that they're offering, in terms of why is it so cheap. It's because it doesn't have all the attributes that you would get from an estate agent. So their commisery campaign and so on has always left a very sour taste in the mouth, particularly when you have very well-intentioned vendors getting a terrible service and having to pay for it regardless of whether the property is sold or not. Now, the reason for mentioning those in the context of Yopa is I think Yopa is a different beast, and I think that under Verona Frankish, it stood up and been very clear about what it is, which is a cheaper service for selling your property. And it has additional levels of service that you can buy into. It now has associate members where you can actually be a self-employed agent working under their umbrella, and now very particularly, and with some applause from me, has launched its own kind of careers service, where it is encouraging people to understand why a career in estate agency is a good one and is worthwhile. I obviously spend a lot of time looking at AI and working out what is going to happen with the future of AI, and particularly the future of jobs. I also have two teenagers who are growing up in this world of AI and coming into the employment market and working out, and obviously I spend a lot of time thinking about what that's going to look like for them. My kind of take is always that that AI is going to change how we do jobs in the same way as technology has done all the way through human existence. So, things like I don't know, lorry drivers, right? They weren't a thing until we created lorries. Software developers, they weren't a thing until we created software. And there will be a whole raft of new jobs that AI will create. But I think that the thing that is going to be most evident about AI and its place in the market, the employment market, is that there will be human jobs and there will be machine jobs. All right. And I think that one of the human jobs, and again, going back to the Simon Baker podcast, was one of the things that I was very, that we actually kind of disagreed on, was I think that the property and estate agency and lettings agency, that representation during the course of the sale or let of your biggest asset, I think is going to be something that persists for at least my lifetime, because I just cannot see that this is a function that will be outsourced. And again, many have talked about it and tried it and thought that it's that disintermediation will come for estate and lettings agents too. I remember back in prime location at the very start, 2000, when the internet first came along, that agents would constantly see us as potentially as a threat to their existence. And I never believed that was true. And 25 years later, it has turned out to not be true from the internet's perspective. And I think that AI will be the same. There may be certain roles or certain functions that our estate agency that are in estate agency and lettings agency right now that will be farmed out to AI, and that is going to be a welcome development, right? What we need to do as humans is get out from behind our screens and get out talking to each other. And I think there will be a premium placed on face-to-face contact. And I think that estate agents, particularly those that still have offices, will be in a very unique place to benefit from that, and I think it's super exciting. So yeah, as Yopa is now actually out there promoting what a great profession estate agency is, I believe that it is one that will stand the test of time, even as AI comes for many other roles, and so yeah. Huge applause to Yopa for actually taking the lead on this and actually going out and saying that this is what they need to be doing. So our third story in our property news this week is all about CoStar. Now, you know that these guys own On the Market. They also own Homes.com over in the States. And we are awaiting the time that they actually rebrand On the Market as Homes.com/UK. I'm still sure that's going to happen. Anyway, CoStar are now attempting to acquire one of the dominant portals over in Australia called Domain. Now, this is essentially the kind of Zoopla of Australia. So the number two, they are battling it out with REA Group, realestate.com.au, for dominance, and are doing about as well as Zoopla in the end. So are quite a far distant number two, bless them. So CoStar is aggressively acquisitive, I think it's fair to say, and are looking at number twos and number threes in various markets around the world. Andy Florence, who is their CEO, was on stage at the Property Portal Watch PropTech conference in Barcelona last October, and told Simon Baker there that actually he is looking to get more and more property portals out into from various markets around the world. So obviously, Domain is a big one, and it's a $1.7 billion all cash takeover bid, and it's not one that has been agreed by Domain. Domain is owned 60% by Nine Network, I think it's called, over in Australia, and they, this is apparently their biggest asset, so they're probably going to fight quite hard to see off this particular bid. I mean, perhaps there is a number that CoStar could come back with that would make it a relatively straightforward transaction from Nine's point of view. But yes, for now, it is broadly unwelcomed, not necessarily hostile, but it is something that is going to be very interesting. And I think for us over in the UK as well, if CoStar is successful in acquiring Domain, does that change its appetite for the fight over here in the UK? Actually, really, when you look at it, what has really changed for on the market since CoStar acquired it just over a year ago? Um, so I think it's, is there, are they going to be distracted? Are the team that took over on the market now going to go down under and sit down there for a while? What are the plans for on the market over here? Is it going to continue to sort of be comfortable in its third position? Are they going to try and make a real bid for number two? Are they going to merge with Zoopla? Again, something I think makes unbelievable sense. And I would think that anybody sitting in in either Supla's big chair or on the market's big chair would look at that as being a desirable outcome, so that they could turn their fire exclusively onto Rightmove. So a lot. Yeah, even though it's down under, there is a lot riding on this, I think, for us here in the UK in terms of whether this is going to have a distracting effect on the market, or whether it actually just means that they're going to go, right, let's just get on with this. Let's just, merge with Zoopla, change the name to homes.co.com/UK and crack on. And yeah, maybe they're over in the Australia, will be, homes.com/au or .au. It's going to be really interesting to see what this huge cash-rich business has got planned for property portals around the world. And also, let's not forget, there's the AI element in there as well. Actually, if agentic AI search means that on the market is able to be discovered by property searchers just as easily as Rightmove is, then actually, that kind of makes the acquisition even more interesting, and perhaps makes the domain approach make even more sense too. So again, there's a lot to continue to see what's happening here. Okay, so on to our next section, which is our quick fire round, all about AI news. So this week, there has been a number of battles going on between our old friend Elon Musk and the guys at OpenAI, particularly Sam Altman, who is their CEO. And it's taken on a number of different dimensions. So we're going to deal with each of them in turn. The first one is actually Musk has released Grok 3, so Grok 3, his third large language model. This one has some reasoning elements in it. So just to remind everybody, there's two distinct kind of types of AI. Right now, there is the generative AI, which is kind of like a journeyman question answering service. And this is like ChatGPT 4.0. And then there are reasoning models like ChatGPT o3, which include things like deep research, which is all about thinking and chain of thought. So essentially, it will check its answers over a period of time and bring back a much more complete and rounded answer to perhaps some deeper questions out there. So what Grok 3 has in it is this reasoning mode as well. And one of the things that I did think was quite interesting. Now, I've to be honest, I've kind of discounted Grok up to this point. It's obviously based out of the old Twitter, so x.com. It's got some unique data inside it as a result, and therefore it's quite good for certain tasks, particularly around like what's happening live, etc. But it's always been a little bit behind the curve. The whole kind of idea that it is all this free speech stuff that Musk keeps talking about is obviously, that there is a certain skew to how he has built it out, and a certain point of view that his model takes, just as with ChatGPT, there is a certain point of view that it takes as well. So we've got this new model actually that's come out is actually it's pretty good. Actually it's whilst its performance against some of the benchmarks is questionable in terms of their emphasizing particular results rather than others. It does seem to be at least comparable with some of the better models out there. Finally, from a Grok perspective and from a Musk perspective, so they've worked hard to get it to this point. One of the interesting things about the launch, and that they launched it at the beginning of this week, talking about how It's got some creativity inside, and perhaps this is the first time we've seen AI using some creative skills. So what they did was on the live demo, they asked Grok 3 to essentially come up with a game, and a game that was a blend of Tetris and Bejeweled. And Bejeweled again is a kind of Candy Crush equivalent. And what it actually came up with was really quite cool, and actually kind of worked as a game right off the bat. It created the code for it. It then, when you ran the code, then it created this little game that had very many features of Tetris, so the falling different shaped blocks, and then the Bejeweled, where if you had three of a distinct color alongside each other, then those would disappear, and then gravity would kick in. So when one thinks about the coming sort of world of AI, one of the things that there's long sort of been believed is that AI is going to lack a bit of creative spark. And I just thought this was a really interesting example of perhaps a little bit of creativity starting to come through from these deeper models, the bigger ones, the reasoning models, that actually are starting to kind of think in certain ways that might be argued are creative ways. And so again, it's still got some way to go, I think, both Grok itself and also this creative part. But it is a step forward for Grok. It's going to mean that these agentic AI searches are going to be more and more available and cost less and less. So be much quicker, I think, as the competition heats up. So the latency is going to be shorter, and that means that that essentially is going to become relatively quickly a very easy way for people to do things like search for property without having to go onto property portals. So again, another kind of brick in that particular wall, and I think it's going to be something that is going to change how we operate in our industry as well. So that's XAI going up against OpenAI in the tech sphere. There is still the court legal case is still ongoing, where Musk is essentially suing OpenAI and trying to stop them from turning into a for-profit entity from a non-profit entity. That he launched that. He launched that about this time last year, and then stopped it in the summer, and then started it again in August. This is Musk. So that's still ongoing. And then the third thing that's happening between these guys is that Musk launched a bid for OpenAI last week as well, 97.3 billion, I think, and which was then roundly rejected by the OpenAI board. It seems that this is really more of to cause more problems as Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, tries to turn his business from a non-profit into a for-profit, because that's where he gets the investments that he needs, he believes, to continue to develop AI and AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, for the benefit of humanity. I'm using air quotes here because that's what they say all the time. It's a buzz phrase. Who knows what that means? But I do think OpenAI has obviously led the way with its launch of ChatGPT 3.5 in November 22, and since, with various other things such as Sora, the video engine, obviously with deep research, which is pretty amazing. So there's a lot riding on this. Musk is throwing grit into the cogs of everything that OpenAI is trying to do, but also just buys them a bit more time to smarten up Grok. And what we've seen is that the Grok 3 is at least a contender now, whereas the previous Groks probably weren't. So lots going on with those two. It can seem a little bit like a playground fight. It can be quite annoying, but yes, I think that it's going to be a feature of all of our AI lives over the next year, couple of years, maybe even longer than that. All right, more quickfire news. We've heard that essentially there's been some beyond the grave voice work, AI work, from somebody that was murdered over in the States. And what Netflix has done is they have created a synthesis of this particular person's voice. She's called Gabby Petito, and they've created a three-part docuseries called American Murder, Gabby Petito. And what it does is it uses her voice to read her journal entries and text messages. And this is all through AI. All right. So actually, this is something that she's never actually said. She's obviously written down, but in order to dramatize it, this as the show says, it allows you to hear her thoughts in her own words. Um, the family apparently is on board with this and has said that they're comfortable for Netflix to have done this. There's a little bit of unease elsewhere in the ecosystem about whether this is really a really good thing. We've had other from beyond the grave AI realizations. There was Peter Cushing in Rogue One, Star Wars, where his character came back to life or was brought about, even though he's sadly passed, and other ways that this is going to continue to happen. And I think we're not far away from some music being created, as you heard with the Beatles, who won a Grammy a couple of weeks back for a Beyond the Grave song that John Lennon had sung, and also George Harrison's guitar. So that there's a lot going into this. There's obviously a lot of potential, money being to be made from this. Obviously, Netflix has decided to bring this through for some content. If one was to imagine a new Elvis song or Michael Jackson song coming out, would that be things that would make a significant amount of money? I kind of guess it would. So we're going to see this more and more. But it was just a very interesting kind of almost battle here between the sort of the moral aspects of bringing somebody's or of using an AI voice to read out somebody's actual genuine texts and genuine journal entries, and the fact that the family was comfortable for it, but others were not, and whether this is going to be something that we're going to see a lot more of very quickly, or if it's going to be kind of a slow burn. So yeah, it's perhaps slightly uncomfortable, but I think it's going to be more and more for those who perhaps have been bereaved to hear their loved ones' voices again. I think is going to be in many ways or in many instances perhaps too tempting to resist, and that seems to be somewhat the case here. All right, so that is the end of our quickfire AI technology round. Now just really quickly into our tool of the week. So our tool of the week this week is called Pocket Pod. Now, if you go to Pocket Pod, what you can actually do is it's an app on your phone, and what it does is it synthesizes the news or gives you a digest of news that is just essentially news that you want to hear. So it's like having your own radio station, essentially, that will go and parse all of the news stories that are out there on any given day and deliver to you, and literally to you personally. So my version of this calls me Mal and tells me every morning what the weather's like in the area of the country that I'm in, and then we'll dive into particularly AI news, technology news, property news, whatever you want to hear news on. It will go and find these stories and bring them back to you. And it's literally about sort of 10 to 15 minutes of AI voices chatting as if they're newscasters about news of the day. I find it very useful because it stops me having to go and trawl to try and find specific news stories. I think it's going to be really good from a productivity point of view. Again, it stops you having to spend time finding information that this delivers to you in a very personal and interesting fashion. I do think there is a flip side to this, which is you can very quickly just get into your own bubble, right? You don't necessarily hear news that you're not that interested in. So, you can lock out, stories about wars that are going on out there, and, anything that conflicts with your particular worldview. I'm sure you can create a really quite a regimented, distilled, point of view coming in, depending on what you choose. But it's well worth a listen, and just to practice, just to hear kind of the future right now. It's called Pocket Pod, and it's our tool of the week. All right, finally this week we're into our weird AI of the week. Now, love these very very deep stories where essentially people have done something with a child's toy and therefore are going to speak very seriously about it. So this is researchers who have placed 1,000 AI agents into a Minecraft server, which has developed its own civilization with government, a culture, and an economy. It's a California-based startup, Altera. Um, and they essentially create their own virtual societies. They move very fast. They do loads of things. They trade. They build. They make an economy, and they do really quite surprising things. But um, it's interesting because it was the priest who was the most successful, and said that he was bribing the townsfolk to basically become part of his group. And it's fascinating. But I think particularly hilarious is how seriously everybody who's involved in this is taking it, and they've got like a really very bespectacled and articulate gentleman talking at length about how important this is. And look, I'm sure it is, and I'm sure it will be. But just now, it's a kid's game, right? And it's supposed to be a bit of fun, and I think it probably is. Okay, so that is our weird AI of the week. All right, that's all we've got time for this week on the Property AI Reports. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next week with even more on the paired worlds of property and AI. Until then, have great weeks, and I'll see you in a few days' time. All the best. Take care.